possibly our single most valuable artifact, actually.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Chamber Talks. I'm here with Museum of Idaho Executive Director Jeff Carr. Jeff, thank you so very much for being on this episode today.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Appreciate it so much. Jeff, you've been at the museum for quite a while now. I've got to know you a little bit, but I'd love to just kind of get a little bit of your story first about who you are. Tell us a little bit about who is Jeff Carr.
Oh man, okay. So I was born and raised here in Idaho Falls, and this is going to sound crazy, but I have just always been in love with this city and this place, and so I never knew exactly what I wanted to do here, but I knew that I wanted to do something that helps contribute to the betterment of this area.
Yeah,
I'm happy to. Hopefully be doing that now.
Yeah. And so born and raised here. And where'd you go to school?
So here I went to Idaho Falls High School.
Okay.
And then I went off and I got a degree in English at Utah State University.
Okay.
And then I went and got a master's in California at Stanford.
Nice.
As well.
And so has kind of being a museum director been something of a goal for you when you started out in kind of your educational pathway, or how did you end up like going, yes, this is what I really want to be doing?
Yeah, no, this was never a thought. It never crossed my mind, actually. Okay. And in hindsight, I feel silly because it's sort of perfect and I should have thought of this. But no, I've always been interested in a lot of different things, right? And so I got into writing and editing and journalism, right? So that's sort of how I got started out. And but I had this other interest in foreign affairs, especially like Russia and Eastern Europe, former Soviet Union.
Right.
And so I just studied things that were interesting to me without really any thought of how I was going to make money that way, which I don't know if I would recommend that, but I guess it's worked for me. So I feel lucky. So anyway, I did that sort of thing for a while. After grad school, I wrote for a newspaper, and then I worked in foreign affairs for a few years in DC. Yeah. Got to travel, but I always wanted to come back here. Yeah, it was always the idea was to end up back here, even though the degrees that I got don't really sort of obviously translate into something here.
Right.
And so, like I said, I just sort of knew that I wanted to do something that would hopefully use some sort of expertise that I had built over a while and be of a benefit to this area. And so I was actually just sort of walking around one day with a family member brainstorming, okay, like I really want to move back to Idaho Falls. What can I do there?
Right.
And which I don't think is like the order that most people do things in. You know, you come up with a job first and then you move there. Yeah. But it was always about this place for me.
Right.
And so anyway, I was like, hey, I want to do this and this and this. My relative was like, the Museum of Idaho does all those things. Right. Like you could work there. Yeah. And it had never crossed my mind, but I made a few calls and found out that it actually worked out really well, that they needed sort of a communications person. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got in the door at the museum.
Nice. So you did the communications piece, learned everything there is to know about the museum, I guess. And so to this day, you've been in your job now, what, 4 years, 5 years?
Just over 3.
3, is it? Okay. Yeah. So yeah. And so what have you kind of learned, I guess, over the last few years then you've been at the museum that people should know about how cool of a museum we have here in Idaho Falls? Yeah.
So I think it helps that I started out doing the PR communications thing for a few years first, because I really, like, it was my job to sell this place to the world, and I really think that we have a lot that's special that not necessarily everybody in town knows about. And so I think a couple of things. I think people love our traveling exhibit program, right? Yeah. And rightly so. It's fantastic, and it's we bring in traveling exhibits that you normally have to go to like a major city to see. We make Idaho Falls the smallest city in the world to get some of the exhibits that we get. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And that's something that if you just sort of grow up here with the Museum of Idaho, you don't recognize, I think, how unique that is. Yeah. that a city of our size is able to pull that off. Secondly, the thing that I always like to talk about with people is that the exhibits are only one fraction of a thing that we do.
Right.
So people stop me on the street all the time. Hey, what's the next exhibit? And I'm happy to talk about that. I think that's cool. But I always also want to be like, hey, we do 90 other things too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like important accessibility work that we do, that we try to do in the community as well.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing. And then I guess the last thing is that I'm really proud of is that we are able to do all of that as a grassroots organization with no state money and no city money, basically.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that people don't always expect. You hear the name Museum of Idaho and you think, oh, it must be a state institution that gets a bunch of money from the legislature, yada, yada, yada. And that's not how it works.
It doesn't at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is, I'm kind of like impressed with the museum that we have here in town. I visited many all over the world, but one of the things that is unique is, like you said, about you don't receive any other kind of state funds or city funds. And also you're able to provide programs to those who perhaps, like you said, about accessibility. So tell us a little bit about those programs and the benefit that has on our community as a whole.
Yeah, sure. So, I think we see accessibility as very central to our mission, right? A museum just for rich people is not that interesting or not that helpful to a community, right?
I wholeheartedly agree.
We would like to think that a museum is a really useful addition to the community. But it's one of those things that it's interesting that it's sort of in the museum world and in the nonprofit sort of cultural space, it can be hard to quantify sometimes what the impact on the community is.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we've been working on lately is finding these studies out there and taking a lot of data and trying to quantify, okay, this is the impact that we are having on X, Y, Z, whatever.
Right.
And so I think that's a bit of a work in progress. There are studies out there that show that museum visits really improve kids' test scores. Even random samples of kids who just go there on field trips.
Yeah.
And so there's cool stuff out there, and it's the sort of impact that people want, but like I said, it's hard to quantify.
Right.
So anyway, program wise, so we do a lot. We every year we have somewhere between 150 and 200 programs. And these are for all ages, right? And so we've got little learners, 2 to 5 years old, and this is sort of a STEM-based program, going all the way up to our lecture series, our film series, our Museum After Dark, which are sort of like fun, sort of irreverent events for adults.
Yeah.
And whenever we can, we make adults pay for things.
Yeah.
But whenever there's kid-focused stuff, we do as much as we can to get grant funding or otherwise subsidize, so it's as little of a financial burden to people as possible.
I love it. So, what is your favorite thing that you have in the museum?
Yeah, my favorite artifact.
Yes.
That's a good question, and I'm going to give you multiple answers.
Okay. All right.
But I'll be quick about it. So there's a rock in the museum called Henry's Rock, and that's one of my favorite things. It is, to our knowledge, and I think to general history's knowledge right now, it is the single oldest English language writing in the entire Northwestern United States.
Wow.
And so it's this rock that was written on or carved into by some early trappers and traders who came through the area in 1810. And so that was before there were any sort of established cities or towns or posts or anything here. Lewis and Clark had just been through here.
Right.
Obviously, the Shoshone and Bannock people have been here forever.
Yeah.
Anyway, these trappers and traders, and there are people that there are places named after. Henry's Fork is named after Andrew Henry.
Yeah.
And Jackson and Hoback and all of these other local sort of names. And so they were hanging out in 1810, and it was a really tough winter, and they didn't think they were going to survive. So they sort of carved a headstone for themselves.
Oh, wow.
But then they ended up surviving. So it's cool. And we have that original stone, which I think is really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Yeah. Oh, man. What else?
Give me your top 3, I guess.
Okay, top 3. So another one is, it's not even really an artifact. I mean, it is. So right when you walk into our Way Out West exhibit, we've got a big curved steel wall. And it serves a couple of functions. It covers the mammoth so you can't see it right away. Yes. So you get a good reveal when you come around it. But it is also filled with pictographs, essentially, that were created by a Shoshone artist named Bailey Dan, based on stories that she was told as a child in the Shoshone language. And so she designed all of the designs in it, and then we had it fabricated by a local steel company as well.
Nice.
And so we use local labor wherever we possibly can, and local artists. So I just think it's beautiful, and the light shines through it and throws light and shadows on the floor at different times during the day.
Right.
Which I think is really fun.
Let's go.
All right, top 3. You know what? I guess I gotta say, I will say I did not have a top 3 prepared.
No, I know I'm putting you on the spot, so you're doing great.
That's okay. I think the third one, I will mention an artifact that we just got into our collection a couple of months ago.
Okay.
Because it's very special to me. And it is a document with an actual signature from Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, wow.
Basically. And it's special, I think, for a couple of reasons. First of all, because it's Abraham Lincoln, right? Who doesn't love him?
Right.
And there aren't that many examples of authentic Lincoln signatures out there. But secondly, this is special because this was donated to us by who was essentially the founder of our museum back in the 1970s. His name was Lyndon Bateman. Okay. And he just passed away a couple of months ago. And one of his final acts, I got to spend a lot of time with him in his, during my time here, but also especially during his last few weeks. And he was so keen on getting this into our hands at the museum so it could be enjoyed and preserved forever.
It's amazing.
And so it's very special to me to have that from him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. It's very sweet of him to think of that too. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So obviously museum is obviously a huge component to what you do, but you also have this depth and breadth of knowledge around the history of Idaho Falls. And whenever you and I have chatted, oftentimes it's something related to Idaho Falls will come up in conversation. Sure. So tell me, what would you say is one of the most unique things that folks may not be aware of about Idaho Falls, or the greater Idaho Falls area, I guess, that is something that you'd love to share?
Sure. Yeah. I love this question. And so thank you. First of all, it's just that Idaho Falls is way more interesting than most people think.
Yeah, right.
And that's at the heart of a lot of what we like to do at the museum, is talk about how much the city and this whole region ties into these sort of important stories that, you grow up, whether you grow up here or somewhere else, and you hear about these stories, and you hear about the opening of the West and the Wild West and all this cool stuff. But you don't always know that some of this happens right here in your own backyard, right? I don't think we do a good job always of talking about in society that, all of this cool history is not just it didn't all happen in New York or Boston or Dublin or London or anywhere else, right? A lot of it has happened here too.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people sort of always assume that Idaho Falls was always this kind of vanilla religious town, right? And it could not be farther from the truth. And we have an incredible history of Wild West shootouts in the streets and all sorts of red light district stuff that people wouldn't expect.
Yeah. That's funny. One of the things I also enjoy, I hear you talk about the the reason that Idaho Falls became Idaho Falls in terms of its name, because it was called something else previously. I'd love to kind of hear you, just get you on camera telling us that story a little bit about why the change of the name.
Sure. Yeah. So this is a long story, and I'll try to keep it quick. But of course, we were known as Eagle Rock before, right? Which is a cool name.
Yeah.
And we were a railroad town in the 1880s, and a rough and tumble, again, shootouts in the streets sort of things, mostly just like young pent up energy guys around here.
Right.
And anyway, for a number of reasons, the Union Pacific Railroad decided to pull one of their headquarters out of Eagle Rock and move some of it down to Pocatello.
Right.
And so we still think of Pocatello as like the railroad town now, right? It used to be here. And there's a bunch of interesting reasons that happened. There was a strike, there was a windstorm, and anyway. But the town at that time decided, okay, so we're not a railroad town anymore. What are we going to be? Like, what's our identity?
Yeah.
What are we going to do to survive, basically, right? Because like there are ghost towns all over the West. Like survival was not a given, you know?
Yeah.
And so a decision was made to try to be a farming community, basically.
Yeah.
And so they talked to canal companies who were building canals around town. And the canals companies had brought in a marketing team from Chicago. And their names are Holmes, Higbee, Lee, Emerson, and one other guy who didn't get a street named after him. But and as such, I don't remember it. Right. But
that's funny.
I know. Maybe he ticked everybody off. Right? I don't know why he didn't get a street.
That's a dumb idea. No street name after you.
This guy. He was in the doghouse for some reason. Yeah. So anyway, this marketing team came in from Chicago, and they were like, well, or if you want to attract farmers hate eagles and farmers hate rocks.
Yeah.
So you've got to change the name of the town. And so they named it Idaho Falls. The idea that there's just like water rushing all over the place. You put in your spade or your shovel and there's water everywhere. It makes things easy to grow. It was a complete lie, of course. Yeah. The canals weren't even built yet.
Right.
But and in fact, the falls weren't even built yet.
Yes.
So the falls were only built 20 years after the name change.
That's funny.
But that's the story.
A spin. Yeah. That's such a we're gonna really spin the whole thing here. That's really cool.
Yeah. We could come up with another name still if we want to.
Yeah, that's
we're not a farming town anymore.
No, we're not. That's funny. I love it. Well, one of the things I love about the museum is honestly, I love the flag. And I love to visit the museum and go see this flag that we have there. And I'm sure a lot of folks have seen it, but given that it's USA 250 this year, I kind of think everybody should be invited to come as part of celebrating the birth of this country, the opportunity to go see this very special flag that actually lives on display in the museum. So I'd love, just before we wrap up, for you to just share a little bit about what makes this flag so special.
Sure, yeah. Love it. Possibly our single most valuable artifact, actually. Yeah. I will say also that we are, in just a couple of weeks here in April, opening an America 250 focused exhibit as well.
Sweet.
Called Declaration.
Love it.
And so that'll be a lot of fun. So there's a lot of things that you can do at the museum to commemorate this time. But yeah, so we call this the lawyer flag, and it's because it was donated to us by a family with that last name, Lawyer.
Right.
And it's really unique for a couple of reasons. So it's a 13-star flag. It is from the 1790s, as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
And so the one really unique thing about it is its star pattern is different, right? So the early flag code of the United States didn't say 13 stars in a circle. It just said 13 white stars on a blue field. And so different people made flags in different ways.
Right.
And this is one. So there's 5 big stars and 8 little stars. And we have all these theories about why, someone's 5 favorite states, or if it was just a design choice or whatever. But so it's got these 13 stars. And it is, we have talked to the Smithsonian, we've talked to various branches of government and looked all around and researched. And to our knowledge, this is the only flag in existence with this particular star pattern on it, which is pretty cool. The other thing that's interesting is that it was actually carried in the Civil War as well by a man named Joseph Lawyer, who was 18 years old, and he was a Union soldier, and So, by this time, this flag had already been in his family for a couple of generations, and he just sort of took it because it was special to him.
Yeah.
And so he marched, Sherman's marched to the sea in Georgia, and there's a little bit of blood on the flag that may or may not be his.
Right.
And so this flag has seen some things, and it's been special in sort of a personal way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Whenever I go, it kind of helps me kind of remember the sacrifices folks made to kind of give us the wonderful country that we get to live in today, and that we get to live in a town that once had eagles and rocks that now is flying with the water. It kind of lived up to its name eventually, with this wonderful museum that we have. So tell us just a little bit about the exhibit that you currently have now, and how folks can get themselves together to come along and visit the museum.
All right. So yeah, we're going to be opening this declaration exhibit soon, but also right now we have an exhibit called Life Before Dinosaurs, Meet the Permian Monsters. And so it is an exhibit that looks like a dinosaur exhibit, but technically, if you talk to paleontologists and zoologists, there are a number of beasts that existed in the Permian period, which came before the era of the dinosaurs, but they look like dinosaurs. They're just not sort of the ones that we're used to, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And so this is full of casts and dig pits for kids to dig around in, and an actual sort of like animatronic, fleshed out dinosaurs. Well, not dinosaurs, monsters.
Yeah.
Dinosaur-like creatures.
And so this is kind of like the land before time.
Exactly. Exactly. We considered that as a title. Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so how long is that going to be?
It'll be here through Labor Day.
Okay, great.
And then we'll bring a new one.
And then when do you have this new decoration exhibit?
So this opens in a couple of weeks on April 18th.
Great.
And that'll be here through the end of the year.
Awesome. Okay. And the easiest way for people to get tickets and come along?
Just show up. But yeah, I mean, our website, museumofidaho.org, has all the information you need to know about how much it costs, what the hours are, any questions you might have. But,
Well, Jeff, thank you so very much for taking the time to chat with me today and tell us a little bit about the museum. I love it. It's one of my favorite places to visit and hang out. And whenever I have people visit me, I always take them there, and I usually kind of wander around with them. I always find something new. So thank you so very much for doing a wonderful job. And thank you to all of you guys for tuning in today. This has been another episode of Chamber Talks. And thanks again to Jeff Carr, Executive Director of the Museum of Idaho. And we'll see you at the next one. Take care.